Most people believe being heard means speaking more, adding details, repeating their points until no one can miss them. Yet the truth is the opposite. The more words you use, the less weight they carry, because constant talking turns presence into noise, and noise fades quickly, leaving no lasting impression. Think of the people you remember most. They were not the ones who filled the air with chatter. They were the ones who chose their words with care, delivered them with calm, and allowed silence to work as their ally. Silence is not emptiness. It is a frame. It makes the few words you do speak echo deeper. It creates space for others to lean in, to wonder, to replay what you said long after the moment has passed. When you always feel the need to explain, you lose the sharp edge of authority. But when you speak little, with purpose, you hold the room without even trying. The paradox is that by saying less, you are actually heard more because people value what is scarce. And when you ration your voice, you give your words the weight of rarity, like a coin no one wants to waste. In meetings, in conversations, in moments of conflict, the one who remains quiet longest is often the one others watch most, waiting for their verdict, sensing that when it comes, it will matter. The nervous speak to fill silence. The confident allow silence to speak for them, and the difference is felt instantly. People are drawn to certainty, and certainty does not need decoration, it only needs presence. When someone fills every pause with words, they signal insecurity. They reveal a fear of being misunderstood, a fear of losing control. But when you hold back, you show the opposite. You show that you are already in control, that you do not fear being misunderstood because your presence defines you more than your words ever could. A short statement delivered with calm will be repeated, debated, remembered, while a long defense will be forgotten, because people do not carry explanations in their minds, they carry impressions, and impressions are born from strength, not from volume. This is why the most powerful voices in history often spoke in sentences so simple they could be carved in stone. They did not aim to clarify every doubt. They aimed to leave an imprint, and imprints are made by sharp edges, not endless waves. The paradox of few words is that they demand more from the listener. They force attention, they force interpretation, they create an aura of mystery that keeps people returning to the words in their own mind long after the speaker has fallen silent. And that is the real power, to live rent-free in someone's thoughts without ever repeating yourself. When you learn to embrace silence, to cut your words to the core, to let stillness be your companion, you will see the shift. People will stop waiting for you to explain and start waiting for you to define. Most people believe the more they talk, the more they will be noticed. They think filling space with words will make them appear confident, intelligent, or important. But the truth is the opposite. The more someone speaks without control, the less weight each word carries, and eventually their voice becomes background noise that no one remembers. People speak to fill air because silence makes them uneasy. They seek validation because they want to be approved. They want to be liked, and so they chase attention through endless explanations and commentary. But the human mind does not respect what is given too easily. Just as something rare feels more valuable than something common, words that are rationed feel heavier than words that pour out without pause. The louder and longer someone talks, the less authority they project, because authority is not measured by how much space your voice takes. It is measured by the impact of the few words you allow to stand on their own. Think about the people who dominate conversations with constant chatter. They may seem lively, but soon others grow tired. Their voice fades into repetition. Their presence loses sharpness and they end up ignored. Then consider the quiet one in the room, the one who does not rush, the one who observes, and when they finally speak, everyone listens. Not because they shout, but because their words feel deliberate. Scarcity creates demand, and scarcity in speech creates authority. When you refuse to waste words, when you cut out the unnecessary, you show discipline, and discipline always commands more respect than desperation. People confuse being heard with being loud, but true influence comes from being selective. It comes from making others lean forward to catch your meaning rather than tune out from exhaustion. Voices fade because most people speak for themselves. They talk to ease their anxiety, to prove their worth, to cover their fear of not being enough, and in doing so they lose the very respect they hope to gain. The more someone pushes to be understood, the more they look fragile, but the one who holds back looks strong. The one who pauses looks certain. The one who does not need to speak constantly creates the sense that when they do speak, it will matter. This is why authority is tied not to volume, but to scarcity. A leader does not ramble, a leader does not explain endlessly. A leader chooses words that carry weight and then lets them breathe. People remember not the noise, but the clarity. Not the flood of sentences, but the precision of a line that stands alone. Most voices fade because they are too common, too desperate, too restless. But the rare voice, the one that waits, the one that speaks less but with certainty, becomes unforgettable. The paradox is simple. The fewer words you use, the more people remember you, and the more you fill space with empty talk, the faster you vanish from their minds. Silence is one of the most powerful forces you can use because it creates gravity around everything you say. When you pause before speaking, people instinctively lean in. They sense something important is coming, and their attention sharpens. The pause is not weakness, it is weight. It signals that you are not rushing, you are not desperate to be heard. You are deliberate, and people respect what feels deliberate. The same is true after you finish speaking, when you let silence linger. People replay your words in their heads, they wonder if they missed something. They give your message a second life without you doing anything. The silence frames your words and turns them from sound into impact. Without silence, words tumble out like loose coins, scattered, noisy, and quickly forgotten. But surrounded by silence, each word becomes like gold, rare, valuable, and impossible to ignore. Most people fear silence because it feels awkward. They believe if there is a gap, they must fill it. But those who understand power know silence is not emptiness. It is presence. It is the space that creates focus. It is the tension that forces others to feel your authority. When you refuse to rush, when you let silence stand, you tell the world you are not afraid, you are not needy. You are in control, and that control transfers to how others see you. Think about the difference between someone who answers instantly with a flood of words and someone who pauses, looks calm, and then delivers a short statement. The second person always feels more powerful, not because their words are better, but because the silence made their words heavier. Silence also exposes people. When you do not speak, others scramble to fill the gap. They reveal their nerves, they say too much, they show their insecurity, while you remain still, watching, collecting information without effort. Silence is a mirror. It reflects who is calm and who is restless. It reveals who is grounded and who is fragile. And every time you let silence work, you grow while others shrink. In conversations, debates, or negotiations, the one who controls silence usually controls the frame. Because silence is pressure, it makes people question themselves. It makes them doubt their position. And when they start talking too much, they hand you their weakness. The gravity of silence also changes how people remember you when you do not flood them with constant words. They remember the few things you did say, they replay them. They assign meaning to them, often more meaning than you even intended. And that is the secret. Silence lets their mind do the work for you. They build the myth around your words. They make you larger than life because you gave them space to think. This is why silence is not just the absence of sound, it is the amplifier of power. It is what makes a sentence echo long after the room has gone quiet. It is what makes your presence undeniable, even when you say little. Most people use words carelessly. They talk to fill space, to soothe nerves, to appear confident, yet the result is the opposite. The more they speak, the less power their words hold because words without intention dissolve into noise. The truth is that every word must feel chosen, deliberate, impossible to waste. Because language is not meant to be scattered, it is meant to be sharp. The strong understand this. They do not explain endlessly. They declare. They do not ramble in circles. They strike straight to the core. Their words cut through the fog rather than adding to it. When you hear someone who uses language like a blade, you feel it. You pause. Because there is no confusion. There is only precision, and precision is always respected. The weak speaker hides behind long explanations, thinking detail equals strength. But detail without clarity only weakens the message. It makes the listener tune out. It makes them doubt the speaker's confidence. The strong speaker uses fewer words because they know each one matters, and when every word carries weight, the message lands harder. A blanket of words may feel safe, but it smothers meaning. It drowns the listener in softness, leaving nothing behind, while a blade of words pierces and stays lodged in memory. You may forget the endless speech, but you never forget the sharp line delivered without hesitation. Words as weapons are not cruel, they are disciplined. They are used with restraint. They are carried like a sword still in its sheath, drawn only when necessary, but when drawn, undeniable. This is what creates presence, the knowledge that someone does not speak often, but when they do, their words will matter. Their words will leave an imprint. Consider the leaders, thinkers, and figures you respect. They are rarely the ones who talk endlessly. They are the ones who can silence a room with a single line, and the silence after that line is proof of impact. Using words as weapons means cutting out everything that does not serve your message. It means resisting the urge to explain away every doubt. It means trusting that clarity will carry itself. Most people explain because they want to be liked. They want approval. But in power, approval is weakness. Certainty is strength, and certainty is shown by speaking directly and leaving no room for debate. The most dangerous phrase is not a long speech. It is a short one. It is a truth so blunt that no one can mistake it and no one can ignore it. The practice is simple but difficult. You must train yourself to slow down, to cut, to strip away filler, and leave only the essential. This discipline will make every statement feel heavier, because listeners will know you do not waste words. You do not need filler. You speak only when necessary. Words are not a blanket to hide under. They are a blade to draw with precision. And when you learn this, people will never hear you the same way again. Control is not shown by how much you say, but by how much you hold back, because speaking less shows you do not chase approval. It shows you value your words enough to ration them, and this restraint creates an aura around you that others cannot ignore. People are used to voices that spill out quickly, eager to explain, eager to be liked, eager to prove themselves right. So when they meet someone who is not rushing, not defending, not trying to win anyone over, they feel something different. They feel authority. Authority does not need to be loud. It does not need to be constant. It is felt in the calmness of someone who speaks when they choose, not when they are forced. Someone who seems to control not only the room, but also themselves. The aura of control comes from discipline, from knowing that silence does not diminish you, but strengthens you, from trusting that the less you speak, the more weight your words will carry, and from understanding that people lean toward what they cannot easily predict. When you hold back, you create space, and in that space others project meaning. They assume you must know more. They assume your restraint hides depth. They assume your calm is proof of strength. Even if you say little, people remember you because you made them work to interpret your silence, and the human mind respects what it has to work for. In conversations, the one who controls their pace controls the frame. The one who does not rush to answer is seen as thoughtful, even if their words are simple, while the one who reacts instantly is seen as careless, even if their words are clever. By pausing, by rationing, by resisting the urge to fill every gap, you show you are not desperate, and desperation is what makes most voices fade. The aura of control is not about manipulation. It is about presence. It is about showing through your restraint that you do not need to prove anything, that your position is already secure. People instinctively measure power not only by what is said, but by what is left unsaid. And the person who seems comfortable with silence, who is unshaken by pressure, who does not need to over-explain, is always seen as stronger. This is why restraint becomes influence. Because when you do not flood the room with your energy, you leave room for others to feel it, and they sense that your calm is not emptiness, but command. You can see this in leaders who speak few words yet dominate, in people who rarely raise their voice yet silence the crowd, in those who say little but leave others talking about them long after they are gone. The aura of control is built through consistency, through self-discipline, through trust in your own presence, and once it surrounds you, you no longer need to fight for respect. It arrives uninvited, carried by the very silence you allowed to exist. Presence is what makes people listen even before you speak. It is the silent force that carries more weight than the words themselves, because tone, posture, and gaze often speak louder than anything that comes out of your mouth. The less you say, the more your body becomes the message, and in that quiet message is where real authority is found. Stillness shows you are not restless. Eye contact shows you are not afraid. Calmness shows you are not shaken. And together they create an aura that no speech can fake. Most people try to perform. They exaggerate their tone. They overuse their hands. They raise their voice. They believe performance equals influence, but the truth is that performance feels desperate, while presence feels natural. It feels undeniable. It feels like power. Think about the difference between someone who argues loudly and someone who sits still, speaks once, and holds the gaze of the room. The second person will always appear stronger, not because they said more, but because their presence carried the weight. When you rely on performance, you chase reactions, you chase approval. You try to win people through volume and movement. But when you rely on presence, you do not chase anything, you let others come to you. You let them adjust to your calm, and in doing so, you create control. Presence is built through restraint, by removing the little habits that show nerves, the tapping of fingers, the fidgeting of hands, the rushing of words. Presence is created when you can sit still, when your eyes do not dart, when your voice does not race, when your breathing is steady. These signals are small but powerful. They tell others that you are not under pressure. You are not desperate to be heard. You are comfortable in your skin, and that comfort radiates authority. People are not only listening to your words, they are studying your signals. And if your signals show control, your words, however few, will land with more impact. The less you speak, the more people study your presence. And this is why you must shape it. Not through exaggeration, but through discipline, through practice, through calm self-awareness. A still body feels like confidence. A steady tone feels like certainty. A direct gaze feels like dominance. And together they create the impression that you are in command even without saying much. This impression is stronger than performance because it is not forced, it cannot be faked for long. It is something that must be built from within, and when it is real, it is unshakable. Most people will forget what you said, but they will remember how you looked when you said it. They will remember the calm in your eyes, the strength in your stillness, the control in your tone, and those memories will carry more weight than the longest speech. Presence over performance is the key to authority, because words fade, but the feeling you create in silence lasts. And that feeling is what makes people listen without you ever needing to try. Power is often decided not by what is said, but by who can remain still when the room grows tense, because when you do not rush to fill the gap, others scramble too. And in that scramble they reveal themselves. They expose weakness, they overtalk, and every extra word they throw into the air makes your silence look stronger. Silence is not just absence, it is a mirror. It shows who can stay composed and who cannot. It exposes nerves, it exposes desperation, and the more you let it stretch, the clearer the difference becomes. While they speak and explain and defend, you sit calm, watching, and when you finally do choose to speak, your words strike like thunder in the storm, sudden, sharp, and impossible to ignore. Most people are terrified of silence. They feel its weight as pressure. They rush to break it. Because they fear judgment, they believe if they are not talking, they are losing. But the opposite is true. Silence is control. Silence is ownership of the moment. Silence forces others to carry the weight that you refuse to pick up. When you sit with silence, you show that you do not need to chase validation. You do not need to fill space with proof of your value. You are already certain of it, and that certainty makes others uneasy. They begin to question themselves. They wonder why you are so calm. They wonder if you know something they do not. And in that doubt, you gain ground without moving. In conversations, this tactic is simple but powerful. Someone throws a challenge, a jab, or a demand, and instead of reacting immediately, you pause, you let the silence expand. And soon they feel the need to repeat themselves, to soften their words, or to explain further, and in doing so they dilute their own point. The silence you hold becomes pressure they cannot handle. It makes their words echo back at them, and every echo sounds weaker. By letting them fill the silence, you make them look like the one on trial, while you remain untouchable. The real art is knowing that silence does not mean surrender. It means positioning. It means letting others drain themselves of energy while you conserve yours. It means letting them speak themselves into a corner while you hold the key to the door. People rarely remember long speeches, but they remember the one who sat calm and spoke once with precision, because that single strike carried the weight of everything unspoken. Your silence makes their noise look insecure, and your few words delivered at the right moment carry the authority of finality. When you master this, people begin to fear your pauses. They hesitate before speaking against you because they know your silence will make their own voice sound shaky, and when you finally do speak, the room will side with you, not because you argued the longest, but because you made them carry the silence until it broke them. Power in speech does not come from how long you can argue or how carefully you can explain. It comes from precision, from the ability to define instead of defend, from the discipline to close the frame instead of leaving it open for endless debate. Most people waste energy trying to prove they are right. They pile reason on reason, hoping that if they explain enough, they will finally be believed. But the truth is that the more you explain, the weaker you appear. Because explanation signals doubt, it signals the need for permission. It signals that your words cannot stand on their own. Precision is different. Precision says this is how it is, nothing more, nothing less, and the certainty in that tone is what makes people listen. When you explain, you invite argument. You open the door for others to question you, to challenge you, to drag you into their frame. But when you are precise, you shut the door before it even opens. You do not ask for agreement. You state reality as you see it. And reality stated with calm authority often becomes accepted as truth. Think of the difference between someone saying, "I think this might work if we try," and someone saying, "This is the way forward." The second is remembered because it is clear, it is short. It leaves no room for doubt. It carries the weight of decision instead of the weakness of request. Precision does not mean being cold or robotic. It means cutting out what does not serve the message. It means choosing words that are sharp enough to carry impact without extra decoration. It means trusting that strength lies not in length, but in clarity. The strongest statements are usually the shortest, because they land clean, they echo, they cannot be misunderstood, and that is why they live longer in memory. People forget explanations because explanations blur into details, but they remember precise declarations because they cut like lines carved in stone. You must train yourself to resist the urge to explain when you feel misunderstood. You must learn that defending your position makes you look as if your position is fragile, while defining your position with precision makes it untouchable. The person who says, "Here's why I'm not wrong," looks small. The person who says, "This is how it is," looks strong. And this difference is not about truth, it is about perception. And perception is what creates power. When you master precision, people begin to feel the weight of your words before you even speak. They know you will not waste time. They know you will not drown them in noise. They know when you do speak it will matter, and that anticipation itself is influence. Precision over explanation is the mark of authority. It is the habit of those who lead, of those who command, of those who never need to prove themselves because they have already defined the field. The final stage of power in speech is not about the words themselves, but about the aura that surrounds them. Because eventually it is not just what you say that holds weight. It is the energy people feel before you even speak. It is the anticipation that your presence creates. It is the silence that bends toward you, because everyone expects meaning to arrive when your voice does. At this stage, people listen before you open your mouth. They prepare themselves to receive something that matters, and even if your words are simple, they carry a gravity that others cannot match. This is when your voice becomes more than sound. It becomes authority, not because of volume, not because of clever phrasing, but because your presence has been shaped into something larger than the words themselves. This level is not reached through performance. It is built slowly through discipline, through restraint, through the habits of silence and precision, through the refusal to waste language, through the ability to stay calm while others rush, through the decision to value impact over approval. Each time you resist the urge to explain, each time you let silence do the work, each time you strike with few words instead of many, you build the aura, and with time that aura surrounds you like armor. People begin to expect certainty from you. They begin to believe that your voice carries more weight than the average voice, and belief is what creates power. When your voice becomes aura, you no longer compete for space in conversation. You define the space without effort. You no longer need to fight for attention. It arrives naturally, drawn by the quiet strength you project. People remember you not only for what you said, but for how you said it, for the calm that followed, for the silence that made your words echo longer. The aura is what lingers in their mind. The aura is what makes them repeat your lines to others. The aura is what makes them look at you as someone untouchable, someone whose authority is assumed before it is proven. Most people try to build influence by speaking more, by performing harder, by adding layers of explanation. But the final evolution is the opposite. It is when your words are scarce but undeniable, when your pauses are heavier than someone else's sentences, when your presence carries the message before your voice does. This is why the aura is the highest form of communication, because it makes your speech feel inevitable. It makes people lean in without knowing why. It makes them give you authority before you ask for it. At that point, your voice is no longer just a tool. It is a symbol. It is proof of composure. It is the sound of someone who cannot be rattled. And once you reach that level, you do not just speak to be heard, you speak to define, and the room bends to that definition. Maybe this video helped you see yourself or someone you know in a different way. Feel free to let us know via a like or in the comments. And if you want more wisdom and guidance in becoming a better version of yourself, subscribe now. This is the moment to start becoming the person you really want to be.